Hey everyone, welcome back to the Can I Ask You a Question podcast. Each week on the podcast, we're exploring questions and growing in our wisdom. You can expect a solo episode with myself or deep dive interviews with the most interesting people in my world. Either way, we're having fun, we're growing together, and thank you for joining me today. Our question today is this: what do I do when things feel overwhelming and out of control? What do I do when things feel overwhelming and out of control? Honestly, this is how I felt this morning. And sometimes, just to let you kind of in on the inner workings of the podcast, sometimes I just kind of tell myself, hey, I think this is sort of where my mind's at, and maybe a way to get myself out of this rut is actually to work on some content to kind of teach myself and then teach or help you as well to get out of a rut or solve a problem. And so, or different episodes, just that's what my mind's on and what I'm curious about is the question I'm literally asking that morning as I'm working on it, or that week or whatever. And definitely today I felt feelings of overwhelm, of being kind of out of control in some areas, out of control. And so wanted to talk about it and explore it. What do we do in those moments? I went to bed last night feeling great and looking forward to today and some fun stuff that's going to be happening. Felt accomplished yesterday, but every morning's a new morning. And when I woke up and I thought about all the things that I had to learn, to do, to accomplish just in life and the goals I have right now, I felt overwhelmed and just like I couldn't do it. Just like there's no way to get there from here is what it felt like. Some specifics, we're on a journey to level up our family's nutrition and health, and there's some just underlying health things that we're seeking to overcome through prayer, but then also through diet and such. And just in general, we have a 2.5-year-old, and we're wanting to eat healthier, live healthier. And so, I'm a researcher. I like to research and to understand what's going on. And I felt like I kind of had a grip on what I needed to know, and was kind of like, if it was a circle, I was kind of turning a corner to start closing the loop and just kind of putting into practice the things I had learned. And then, what's as inevitably is happening is then I listen to one more podcast or watch one more YouTube video, and suddenly the person there is kind of telling me that everything I'm doing is a little bit off or wrong, or I'm actually like poisoning my family. I'm obviously exaggerating there a little bit. But and it can be kind of discouraging, and it's be like, man, how am I ever going to learn this? How am I ever going to do this right? Where do I even begin? There's so much, especially in the area of like nutrition. And I think the guys I'm listening to are accurate, that so much of our just normal and institutional kind of food sources and processes have some levels of unhealth to a lot of unhealth to them, and sometimes they're not nearly as virtuous as we think they are, giving as much health to our bodies as we think they are. It's a big problem, and today I just was feeling overwhelmed by it. It felt a little bit unattainable to solve it. We also have a major expense, a really cool thing, but a major expense we're considering, and I think that I'm doing what I can to increase our income and be wise stewards of the money we have. But that increase in income, that I'm sowing seeds, but the harvest hasn't come yet. And so it's like, man, you feel like you're doing what you can, but it feels like something is maybe out of your control, or you're still just waiting on it. And it feels like, particularly in that area of income, it's like I'm sowing the seeds, but when they start to pay off, it's a bit out of my control. And so those are some of the challenges I was thinking about and feeling even just this morning, and you just start to feel dizzy with it all. I trust that you can relate to this feeling, and that you'd have your own story. If we were sitting down at coffee, if you'd open up, you'd have the areas that maybe 10 times harder than mine, or maybe they're similar, that you're dealing with, and they feel overwhelming. They feel like they're out of your control, or that they're unattainable. And so that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to explore it from a proactive perspective today. And I want to share with you 5 actions that we can all take to beat overwhelm and to take back some level of control. And, it was a process of actually kind of embracing some of this and acting some of this out that even enabled me to make the podcast I'm making now, because I was just so locked up. It's not actually in the notes here, but this is a bonus one. If you are married, and you've, depending on the relationship, if possible, open up to your spouse. That's what I did this morning, is actually on a drive with my wife this morning. It's kind of say, can I have your ear on the drive? Can we talk? And I just shared these two things, and she was able to kind of cut through some of it, give some ideas, and it really did help me sort of stop spiraling, and then be able to come and share these action steps with you. So I'd be, bonus thing right there is just in general, if you're feeling overwhelmed, if you're feeling like you just can't solve that problem that you're staring at, invite an outside perspective in. Invite a friend in who's a safe and trustworthy friend. Invite your spouse in. Get some help. You don't have to do it alone. But sometimes maybe that's not an option. Or after that, then here are some steps you can specifically, personally take. Number one is dig for more information. If you're feeling overwhelmed, or you're feeling like there's just no way to achieve the goal you're trying to achieve, it feels like it's out of your control, dig for more information. There may be solutions out there. There may be something you have not researched yet. And often the solution may cost less than you think. It may cost less time or money, and it could be worse, but I think we tend to make things kind of worst case scenario in our minds, unless you're just an absolute optimist. And often, at least for myself, since I tend to so make it challenging in my mind, when I dig in, I go, okay, I'm rarely the first person to face this problem. Usually there are resources and people and trainings and things to help people solve problems just like the one I'm facing, or achieve opportunities like the ones I'm wanting to achieve. And so step one, if you're feeling like this, is get out the yellow notepad, or get out your app on your phone, or the notepad on your phone, and run some numbers, do some research, get some more information, and figure out really, when something's a obscure and undefined boogeyman, it's terrifying. Turn some lights on and really look at what you're facing, and suddenly that perspective is very informational, and it may be as bad as you think, but you're no real worse off than the time you spent to invest. But what's so unfortunate is that many times there are solutions out there that a little bit of digging, a little bit of proactive searching and researching and curiosity we would have found it. I was just talking to someone, and essentially they were given a vehicle, and the person before them had dealt with this vehicle problem with their door for years. And then when they gave the vehicle to the other friend, they had a relative come, and I think within like 2 days of owning the vehicle, they had solved that problem. And you just think like, and the other person, I guess, they had dug or had tried to find it. But you just think, let's assume for a moment that they had it, that like just, it's crazy to think you deal with a problem for years and years when a solution is maybe a Google search away. So dig, find out information. And this may not be step number one for everyone. This may not be as helpful when you're overwhelmed for everyone. But recently, this has been just like my go-to thing is, hey, let me open my phone or my computer. Let me start Googling the situation. Let me start finding resources. Let me make a note on my phone or in my Google Docs, and let me start throwing in some numbers. And let's see, okay, what's the real cost of this? Okay, how much would that be if I got a loan? How would I break that down? What interest rate could I afford? How much time would this take? What would I need? What qualifications would I need? Getting a plan on paper with as if you were about to go, scale that mountain today, I find it super helpful in building context and ultimately setting up the groundwork for you to win and move forward and break past that place where you're feeling overwhelmed and out of control. So I'd say number one is dig for more information. Number two, an action step we can all take is to determine what you can influence or control. And so number one is dig for more information. Number two is determine what you can influence or control. Hear that emphasis there on what you can. This episode, I originally was looking at a different title of the episode, which is basically I was going to call it something like, what do I do when things are out of my control? Because that's how it feels. But I changed the title, and I actually changed the direction of the message, because when I was feeling super overwhelmed, that was the initial question I was going to ask and kind of break down. But in that question is sort of built in pessimism. And that question is sort of a built in assumption that maybe a lot more is out of your control than really is out of your control. And I liked this more proactive, which is say, when I feel like it's out of my control, when I feel overwhelmed, when I feel like it's undoable, and that kind of has a presupposition or a built in optimism that says, I feel that way. But as we know, feelings are often at least partially deceptive. They're not usually the full story. And there's this assumption that maybe there is a way to overcome. And so as we're beginning to count the costs, as we're digging for information, it can actually help us then take the next step of determining what we can influence or control. And I would just say right off the bat that we can often, that we can influence. There are lots and lots of things that we cannot control. You can't control other people, for example. They're an autonomous person. They're a free person. You cannot absolutely, even if slavery were to be reinstituted, which we don't want, there's still just a level of freedom that every human has that you can't make them actually love you or believe in a certain truth or whatever. So there's just control we do not have over people and situations, but we almost always have influence. So determine what you can influence or control. And so there are things, we can't control. But the list of things we can't influence, the things we can't control totally, is large. The list of things we can't at least influence or shape the odds in our favor is small, is very small. You can ask for a discount, right? You can't make a vendor, give you their product for free or whatever, but you can ask. You can ask, hey, can we work out a deal? If I were to buy bulk, could we make this happen? Some of our health situation, that's where I'm scratching my head, is it's very expensive. In my early research anyways, maybe someone will prove me wrong or I'll prove myself wrong, but it's expensive to eat truly healthy and organic and grass-fed and all that. And so I'm kind of scratching my head on how we're going to afford this. And I'm doing some of the numbers and I'm digging in. I can't like make a farmer, give me all this stuff for free or whatever, but I could ask for a discount or for free if I wanted to. I don't know if I'm that bold. I could ask, hey, if I were to do bulk, or if I were to bring 10 friends in and they were all buying from you, would you give me a discount or give me mine for free? We have influence. You can ask for help. We can't make someone help you or make someone solve your problem for you or whatever, but you can influence the situation by asking for help, right? You can't guarantee success. Just say you're dealing with a situation. You can't guarantee totally control that absolutely everything will work out perfectly, but you can influence the odds. You can make the odds in your favor by, let's say, making the proactive decision to ask for help. In relationships, maybe some of your overwhelm or feeling out of control as an area of relationships. You're like, I really want my marriage to work, but my spouse is not really on board right now, or I really want my kids to love Jesus and to behave in a certain way and live a certain way and love God, and they're not right now, and you can't make them do that, but you can take the first step. You can take the first step of let's say there's a breakdown in your relationship with your spouse, of forgiving them first, of being respectful to them, and the odds of them reciprocating go way up versus waiting. Well, I'm going to wait so much I'm going to wait for them to do it, or I'm going to sit there doing nothing. No, because I can't control it, because I don't know for a fact the outcome is going to be what I want. We'll take the risk and invest in influence, invest in doing what you can do. You can influence the outcome. You can influence those around you. And then, I don't have absolute control, but on average, you're going to see, I think, a lot more things go your way when you're willing to step in and do the work of influence, of sowing seeds. But then there are things that you can control. And the biggest and the most clear is that you can control yourself. Now, I know that doesn't always feel that way, and I know that self-control is, in fact, difficult, so you could argue that point a little bit, but if you can control anything in this life, if you're accountable for anything in this life, I believe it is for how you lead yourself, what you do with your own heart, mind, soul, and strength. So you can control your thinking, you can control your body, you can control your decisions, and so maybe you're facing a challenge, or you have this goal and it feels overwhelming. There are a lot of things that you cannot do, but maybe you're like, I don't have the finances for a gym membership. Okay. But you can start doing body weight exercises wherever you're at. Well, I don't have the money for every supplement and health thing I want. Okay. But you can if you're in the States anyways, get access really easily to clean drinking water and make sure you're hydrated. You can choose to go to bed at a good time and wake up at a good time and have a healthy sleep. There are things that are in your control. And so as we're looking at this, my next invite for you or encouragement is to determine what you can influence or control, and then do it. Influence that, control that, and start there on what you can do as a first step. Number 3 is, once you've determined what you can influence or control, once you've done some of the research, is this: decide to start. Just take the step, whether it's small or big. Forward motion tends to gain momentum. Staying still and doing nothing almost always is not going to lead to momentum. It's going to lead to stagnation and decay and probably failure in the thing you're trying to do. And so decide to start. Once you've done the numbers, once you've seen something, okay, well, I can't do this, and this, but I can influence this, and I can start this, and I can practice this part myself, then just do it. Take the action and get rolling. As you do that, you're gonna feel better. It's amazing. I've heard. I think there's a speech where one guy talks about just making your bed in the morning, and part of it is that just getting that little win. And I've found that true. That literally making my bed in the morning, I feel differently about myself, about my agency in the world, my ability to accomplish things, to get things done, because I have a small win under my belt. As you begin to do then the little, then suddenly doing the more feels more possible, is more possible, because you're actually building momentum. Speaking of things to do, I want to ask you to do something that will help yourself and our whole community here, directly or indirectly, and that is to subscribe to this podcast wherever you're listening or watching, on YouTube or Spotify or Apple or Amazon, wherever. I think we're a few other places. I'd say subscribe, so we're sending out one every single week. But instead of just searching up, maybe you found this in a different way. I'd be such an honor that you would subscribe, so you're getting notified. You're seeing that every time a new episode comes, and you can tune in. And so I'd encourage you to subscribe. And then I'd ask you that if you would just share the podcast. As we grow this community, we're able to just have more fun, whether that's the different guests we're able to bring on, different things maybe we can do later as a community. Growing it is just mutually beneficial. And so if you have a friend or a family member or someone, would you share it with them? Share it on social, share it in person, let them know about it. Text them right now one of the podcast episodes you think they'd be interested in. And we want to just keep growing this community. And long-term, God, just believe that it's going to be a community of good, that's good for the world, just people who are like-minded and growing in a very practical ways in their life and wisdom and curiosity. And so that's the call to action today. And we're going to be jumping in right now to number 4, thought number 4. And that is this. So thought number 1, action step number 1, dig for more information. Number 2, determine what you can influence or control. Number 3, decide to start. Let's be proactive. Let's get the ball rolling. And then number 4 is this. They're all D's, if you notice that. Number 4 is drop what you can't control. Drop what you can't control. I didn't love the idea of like just dropping something. I'm not saying be a flake, but I needed a D, and so it's either going to be like delegate, drop, or divest. And I chose drop. Just drop what you can't control. There are things that ultimately you're going to have to and the way I say it is really drop it into the hands of God. There are things that we're going to have that no amount of research, no amount of hustle is necessarily going to immediately change. That you've already done the influence you can, you've sown the seed, and now you're waiting. You're needing to some accept the limitations. It's a hard place to be. It's a challenging place to be. I don't believe that we're ever at a spot where we can't move forward anywhere, where there's nothing we can do or progress we can make, but we can be there in a spot, in an area of our life. And at that point, my advice is to drop it in the hands of God and to hand it to the hands of God and begin to talk to him about it. Begin to see what his thoughts are on it, to trust that if it ultimately is something he's wanting you to do, that it will come back around. And this is sort of after you've done all the other work. If you're still like, hey, I don't see a way forward, it may just be time to set this weight off of you for a little while and give it to God. Um, I wrote here, let go of the responsibility to control what you can't. And that's kind of a really beautiful and therapeutic thing. I think it's probably selfish and premature to just drop something because it's hard. I think that we would end up failing in a lot of our responsibilities. We'd end up missing a lot of opportunities. There's something about grit and push through. But I think there is that moment. I think sometimes we're in danger of holding on to something too long. Sometimes we're in danger of being faithful long after faithfulness is what's required of us. Being gritty long after the grace of God has lifted, and we need to actually just accept, okay, I guess here and now in this way, this thing, I'm going to drop it. I'm going to surrender it, and actually then there's a real peace that comes when you can do that, and you're giving back the responsibility to God. Hey, if this is of you, you can renew it. You can bring back in my heart, and then I'll get back to doing my part and being proactive. But for now, I'm dropping the responsibility of controlling this because I can't. I've tried those things. I've kind of reached the end there. I know that for Allie and I, we've had different businesses, and we've worked hard and we've done them. And I look back and say, oh, could I do this better, whatever. But I believe all things being equal, we put in the time, we worked at it. But those particular businesses didn't take off in any large way. They're seeds for future stuff, is what I really believe. But there comes a point when you have to just kind of drop it, say, okay, I guess we're not gonna keep doing that anymore. We're gonna move on, and being able to do that is important. I think sometimes our overwhelm, sometimes our feeling of out of control is because we're holding on to something we needed to let go of, that we needed to drop and give to God. And number 5, and it's real similar but different, is this: define your win. As you're pushing back against overwhelm, as you're pushing back against feeling out of control, one of the steps you can take is to really define your win. And here's my thought, and here's my suggestion: that you would set realistic goals that allow for a spectrum of wins. So modest achievement on one end and massive achievement on the other. I'm really kind of like mind blown. I feel like God is doing a lot of my life by and different, I think, authors and speakers have probably influenced me to even get this concept. But this idea of a spectrum, this idea of, okay, the target being not just one singular spot that's super, super specific, but a range of targets, any of which will be a win. It's super helpful to me. It's super liberating. And so I'd encourage that to you, is to set realistic goals that allow for a contentment and realism on the kind of the bottom end, or a lower number where you say, hey, that'd still be a blessing, while not cutting off the high end big dream and goal. And even you may spend your whole life working towards that. But I just find that spectrum approach to different things, we talked about it on last week's podcast episode, with like finding your ideal income and number and looking at it as more of a spectrum. Well, I think when we're looking at our wins, looking at it as a spectrum, it opens up a broader surface area for us to, throw that dart of life and have it hit a bullseye, still be a win. As we do this, one thing it allows us to do is to embrace the power of patience and contentment. I think, things being out of our control and things feeling overwhelming, those usually are not problems that are top of mind unless we're feeling like we have to, like there's a drive within us, something's driving us towards the destination we haven't reached yet, and that tension is, I think, when suddenly it comes to mind, it's kind of the pain point. But I think sometimes the way we actually solve this is that we hold these things loosely. We say, well, I'm not totally in control. And actually, if one of these 5 different outcomes on a spectrum were to happen, they would all be a win. It creates for more opportunity, for more hope. And one thing I just see is that my goal is that you're gonna be a lifelong pursuer of progress, that you're gonna be a lifelong learner, a lifelong lover of Jesus and people, and that you're gonna keep journeying in a forward momentum your whole life. What I see some people do is that they're so specific on their goal, or they're so picky and they're so hard on themselves, and they have such high expectations that they burn out and they end up achieving nothing, and later you hear them talk, and they don't even fully realize what they did themselves. They just go, "Oh, that was no one could ever do that," or "That was just impossible," or "If this person hadn't burned me, I'd have made it." But they've given up on the pursuit. Whereas there's such a power if you'll stay in the game. Then I remember seeing at different times in the Olympics. I think it was speed skating when I think one of the least favored to win speed skaters ended up winning the gold because everybody else tripped. Now it's not how I would want to win the Olympics. I'd rather just win on my own skill. But hey, they were out there. They had done well enough, better than most people in the world, to be out on that Olympic ice. And a situation happened, and now they were the I think gold podium winner. You never know as long as if you're in the fight, there's a chance you're going to win. And so there's so much power in embracing patience and contentment that says, hey, I'll be happy if a fifth of what I'm achieving happens. I'm going to be joyful there. If 2/5, more so. 3/5, more so. I'm not trying to get soft, not pursue a high goal, but I'm going to actually enjoy each step of the way. And that kind of leads me to a sub-thought within this of defining our win. We may need to change the measuring system from an outcome to a process. Different authors and speakers have definitely come up with this thought. I think James Clear was probably the most recent one that has helped me on some of this. Is okay, what are you really measuring for? What are you optimizing for in your goals? And a lot of times we have a specific outcome. I'll be successful when, or I'll be happy when, or I'll feel in control when, I'll be less overwhelmed when, and it's a specific outcome, and that is harder to actually achieve. And sometimes the way to, I think, find peace in this process when we are in an uphill battle, which is often in certain, probably always in some area of our life, is to switch what the win or measuring as the win instead of, when we reach the end. Instead, it's a process-focused measuring system. We ask ourselves questions like this. Did I put in the work the best I knew how? Did I follow through on my internal and external commitment? And if so, this would be kind of the questions you could ask yourself. Then I'm winning. Then I'm controlling what I can control. I'm letting go of what I can. I'm giving it to God. I'm influencing where I can. And I am a winner, just as if I had achieved the full outcome or nearly so at least. And I find that that's a helpful piece as well. So defining our win. As we wrap up here, life can be super hard. And our situations can feel anywhere from difficult to impossible. I know I felt that way many times in my life. But I hope that with these steps, we're getting some tools to overcome that and to I didn't add more notes to this bit. I was like, well, it's kind of a downer. Where's the positive? It can be difficult. It can feel hard. I felt it. But these steps are proactive things we can do that will push back against it. And so which of these action steps do you need to take today would be my question for you as we wrap up. Do you need to dig for more information and get in there and find out new opportunities? Do you need to determine what you can influence or control and begin to focus in on that? Do you need to just get started, to decide to start? Is there something you need to let go of and give to God to drop what you can't control? Or do you need to better define your win and switch it so that you can celebrate the progress and the process, not just the end result, which maybe is delayed or won't happen? And there's a spectrum here that you're now allowing you're going to be a winner if you hit one of a few outcomes. Which of these do you need to do today? I'd encourage you, think about it, answer it, maybe talk to a friend or a spouse about it. Hey, this podcast, he was encouraging me these different things. Here's what I need to jump into. And then I just say, take it, put it into practice, jump into it, and break out of that overwhelm, break out of feeling out of control. There are things you can do. You can't do everything, but there are things that you can do. I don't do this every week on the podcast, but I just want to pray, make a general prayer for everyone listening. If you're a person of faith, then you're probably real comfortable. If not, I don't mean to make you uncomfortable, but I'm just going to ask that God would guide you and help you in your journey if you're just feeling stuck or overwhelmed or out of control. Father God, I pray for everyone listening that's going to listen in this recent time, that's going to listen months or even years later, that you would meet them, that you would be near them, they'd feel your palpable presence, and you would help them. God, if the thing they're pursuing is virtuous, that you'd help them come to a good end, to a good conclusion. That you'd help them, God, to overcome their overwhelm, to overcome those places of blockage, or where they're feeling out of control, that you'd be a strength to them. And if for some reason someone's pursuing something they shouldn't be, God, that you'd speak to them now and shift their focus and their attention towards something better. We thank you, Lord, in Jesus' name. Amen. Well, with that, thank you so much for this podcast. And thanks for letting me pray for you. And final, just ask again is, would you subscribe to this podcast, the Can I Ask You a Question podcast, wherever you're listening? Do it right as the show ends. Please get on there. Would you share it wherever you're wherever you can, on social or with a friend, so we can grow our community. And with that, guys, have a great week. We'll see you next week. God bless you.